damage increase per level up. Jesus Christ.
Way behind schedule.
Do you think you'll be able to hit 300% crit damage, Lou?
Oh yeah, let me show you. Hold on.
Truly deplorable.
306%. Look at these ice shards. These ice shards are normal, man. These ice shards are normal, man. Oh! Just forgot something. I have C6. I have C6 Ganyu. I can just do that. I completely forgot about that.
Born of ice and frost.
When he uses the E.
Perfect dodge. Hey, wait a minute. Oh my god, dude, what? I didn't mean to do that.
Absorption test. Teamwork is strength.
I wasn't watching what happened.
I did a lot of damage, let's just say. Oh shit, yeah, that's it. I'm done.
What the fuck?
I'm done. That's it.
Oh.
Oh!
That's it. I'm done. I broke the game.
I guess this is it.
Well, I trust that was a pretty deplorable display, right? So let me go over the weapon that I use and the other weapons that I recommend for Ganyu. So for this particular build, I have this Skyward Harp. This adds up to 306% critical damage. This can only be done if you're a horrible person. So if you're not a horrible person, maybe you have 20% extra because you happen to get lucky and get a Skyward Harp. But regardless of whether you have an R5 or R1, the most important thing about this weapon is its inborn critical rate of 22%. In my opinion, critical rate is the most important thing out of all the weapons. Out of every build, you need critical rate. Now, a lot of people tend to have this opinion where, Ganyu doesn't really need critical rate because Ganyu comes with this talent. Oh yeah, you get critical rate 20%, yada yada yada. Yeah, you don't want to get the artifacts, you don't want to have too much crit, yeah. But I don't think they seem to understand what happens when you set up a whole bunch of stuff and then it become an embarrassment. It didn't crit. Especially for a character like Ganyu, where when you charge up a shot, every shot should count. That's what I think. So when you have a crit rate, I have like 20%. Maybe you want to raise it up a little bit. Bring it up to 30. Bring it up to 40. In fact, I should talk about the artifacts too. About how much I value this 40%. Well, if you can freeze someone. The additional 20% is mainly what I aim for. But in general, you want to try to have your passive crit, your skill crit, and everything add up to at least about 60%. So that you can unleash your terrorizing damage more reliably. Because that is the most important thing out of playing Ganyu. If you don't do that, you might as well just not be playing Ganyu. So the other weapons I recommend are the... there's a compound bow, but I didn't build that yet. Stringless is only for support. The Favonius Warbow is also for support. I think that the compound bow is one of the best bow for building a free-to-play Ganyu. Because compound bow works in both normal charge attacks. Let's just take a good look at it. There's also the prototype Crescent, but let's just say there are people that don't have weak spots. Say, child, for example. You could shoot him in the head and there's no weak spots. Although that may have changed now. I remember my buddy Tetsuno was complaining about how he shot him in the head, didn't get a weak spot, and then his Amber build was ruined. Anyway, anything that relies on weak spots are a little iffy. I wouldn't do it. Because slimes definitely don't have weak spots. Their whole thing is a head. So, there's that. I think you would make the most use, if you're free to play, by building the compound bow with the in-game resources that they give you. The other bow that I recommend would be the Viridescent Hunt that you get from BP rewards. That one is pretty decent. But this is pretty fine. This is pretty fine as it is. I like this one a lot. If, you know, I'm not a horrible person and didn't spend a decent amount of primo gems on getting that R5 harp. I actually got really lucky too on that map when I summoned for it. I didn't get the other weapon. I just got 5 straight harps. That's pretty lucky because summoning for weapons can ruin you. It can give you a bad time. In any case, I think that the weapon is probably... The Viridescent Hunt is probably your second best choice in the matter. Tying these guys up, giving you a much easier shot, and on top of this, giving you the crit rate that I was just raving about. I think the Viridescent Hunt is your second best. There's also a Black Cliff Warbow that comes in the shop, but one, I don't like using star glitters to I don't like using star glitter, period, for doing anything else other than getting guaranteed heroes or getting more heroes. But, I mean, it's not bad. It's just... Oh, I can't even look at it, Jesus. Anyway, it just... You need to kill targets in order to get an extra damage. The built-in critical damage that it comes with is probably the main reason why you would want to use that bow. But I think having a little bit of crit rate is probably better. Because Ganyu will produce more than enough critical damage to your weapon. So you want some crit rate in your weapon. So I think Skyward Harp is definitely... Well, then again, hold on. I gotta talk about Amos Bow as well. So, Amos Bow. I like that bow a lot. That bow is absolutely amazing. But the problem with the Amos Bow is that it doesn't crit. And if it doesn't crit and you screw up, you actually lose a lot of damage. See, the thing with Amos Bow is that when it does normal charge attack, yada yada yada, and distance traveled, it adds up to a huge amount of damage, actually. It stacks up to 5 times. So that's like 40%, and if you're like, if you got this thing R5 because you're a horrible person, that's 80%. And on top of that, with the normal and charge increase, that looks like 104%. So that's a huge damage increase. It's massive. On the other hand, if you don't crit, like I said, it's very embarrassing. It's awkward. But I think that still, having Amos Bow probably is still the very best damage if you're simply aiming to do normal charge attacks with her setup. I like using the Skyward Harp because I don't have to worry about crit rate anymore, and I can still do a lot of damage with my ult. But this thing, if you're just focused on charge attack, I think this thing beats even the Skyward Harp quite handily. The thing with this is that, I don't know if you guys know this, but you know how like when Ganyu shoots a charge attack, there's the initial hit, and there's a second hit, right? Well, apparently, when this thing is in the air and does its second hit, it still counts as distance traveled. And by distance traveled, it actually just means how long the weapon has been, how long the fire has been, the shot's been in the travel, how long it took before it hit someone. I know, it's kind of a mouthful for a second. It gave me some brain damage. But that's basically how the Amos Bow works. It basically gave you an additional 0.3%, 0.3 seconds of travel time so that you do even more damage. You're pretty much guaranteed to do a very good chunk of damage with Amos Bow. But again, it's a kind of weapon that you want to make sure that you can crit. So I highly recommend these artifacts. Now, that's pretty much it about the weapons. I think that I have covered most of it, unless you're really looking forward to using 3-star weapons, which I don't recommend for Ganyu, because you have a 5-star character, you should at least use a 4-star weapon. That's my opinion on the matter. If it's too hard, just build a 4-star. You can definitely at least do that. Now, for artifacts, these are the ones that I choose to use, because critical damage, in my opinion, is something that is very important. I do want to get some crit rate, but luck is not quite with me. So unfortunately, I don't have any crit rate built into any of these artifacts. I have to just take what I can get. Still, that being said, I mean, the whole Blizzard set is all about giving me extra crit rate anyway, so as long as I can land a first hit, my second hit will have 20% extra crit rate. So you have to remember, the character that you shoot at has to be under the effect of cryo or frozen in the first place for you to get that 20%. That is why I keep telling people, you need at least a little bit of crit rate, because you want to get started somewhere before you can start really counting your numbers. So crit rate, get a little bit of crit rate if you're lucky. Because if you're unlucky like me and just get crit damage, well, let's just hope that you have a Skyward Harp or a Viridescent Hunt, because you'll need at least a little bit of crit rate to do decent DPS. We all talk about big numbers, but at the end of the day, you want to have a little bit of crit rate. I wish I have an Amos Bow, though, that I can show you some real damage. But for the time being, I can tell you this. That Skyward Harp is definitely no slouch. Now, as for Constellations, I think that this is more than enough for you. This will give the enemy cryo resistance lowered by 15%. It's more than enough. And this is only if you are planning on using this. So C6 is only if you... I mean, C2 is only if you're going for something like that. The C2 by itself isn't anything too special. Once you have C6,
Access denied.
look at this. Just keep spamming your charge attack like this. The enemy will take ridiculous chunks of damage. But when it comes to Constellations, I'm sure you guys all know, just having C0 Ganyu is more than enough. So when people brag about how, oh, I have used a C0 Ganyu do a lot of damage, like there's something. Well, let me tell you something. They're about the same. C0, C1, C6, they're all about the same. It's all about quality of life. Of course, I mean, if we're talking about actual DPS, though, C6 will probably help you quite a bit because it can let you charge faster. But people talk about big numbers rather than actual DPS most of the time anyway. So I know it's a bit of a contradictory thing to say because I do show big numbers, but that's how you get people's attention these days. It's a little unfortunate. Yeah, that's... I honestly think that being able to shoot fast and being able to do big or at least medium damage is what's the most important thing about any DPS characters. That is why I value the ultimate just as much as I do with the charge attacks, and that is why I feel that the Skyward Harp at the end of the day is still the #1 weapon. I suppose when I talk about support teams and team comms for Ganyu later, I will go over the Skyward Harp again and how damaging it is with the support. Anyway, this, of course, you want to max out as soon as you can. I'm a horrible guy, so as a result of being a horrible guy, I have crowned my Ganyu. Now my Ganyu has, well... this. So as you can see, the first shot only does 230% damage. But then, the second shot though, that's the one that you should look at. So when you're doing big numbers with Ganyu, you do your melt build setups and whatnot, you actually want to shoot at the floor. So that you can do more damage, you can show a bigger number. Or your melt will do a bigger number. Because if you actually hit someone directly with your charge attack, you'll end up hitting them with a weaker attack and then they'll follow up with a much stronger one. So when you're doing melt, if you're just looking for big numbers, I would shoot the floor. Of course, if you're just doing regular DPS, which honestly is how you should be playing Ganyu in the first place, try to aim and hit them. Don't worry about how much damage you do with melt. In fact, I think the best characters for doing this is probably the likes of Klee, Amber, Xiangling, who can just leave things all over the place. But Klee is actually a pretty scary partner to go with, along with Ganyu, because Klee's bombs at C2 lowers defense, and lowers defense also lowers the resistance. It just means that they take extra damage. So Klee is a very scary thing. And Bennett, I probably don't need to explain why Bennett is good. So yeah, when it comes to just be aware that the second hit is the one that does the most damage, but you don't really need to aim for it. You just need to make sure that unless you're making stupid YouTube videos to look at big numbers, try to hit them. If not, hit the floor.
Born of
And
ice
just be
and
aware
frost.
of what the AoE range is. Anyway, I tend to blabble on, so we'll just end it with that. I mainly just want to show off my big numbers anyway. Alright, I thank you all for watching. Until next time.